Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on any major podcast system, Amazon TV, and YouTube. Join Mary Ann Fairmouth for today's show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show. I'm Mel Greenberg, and this is my first show. I'm really excited to be here. I hopped on this year to be a host, and I'm really honored and happy to be here. And I'm really excited to be starting out this new year, 2021, and this show, my premiere show, with a fellow Tucsonan. I'm here out in the desert Southwest, and Brittany Turpin is with us this evening, and she's an incredible woman, artist, author, member of our community, and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce her to all of you. Brittany, welcome.
Thank you very much, Alan and Mel. It's a pleasure to be here and certainly an honor.
Tell us, tell everyone about you. Brittany, let's start with your story.
I am a mother of 4 and a wife of 1, Steve, and those are my trophies. I love being a wife and a mother, and I enjoy decorating and art, and my passion is writing. It's something that not only I enjoy, but I'm very good at. So I just put my passion into my life and made it my career.
Did you always fancy that you would write a book, or had that been a dream of yours, or is it something you happened upon and you just had a story you needed to tell at this point in your life?
Well, quite honestly, when I was in school, a couple of things like, high school, grade school, I would consistently hear, you're a good storyteller, you're a good public speaker, you should consider doing these things for a living. And I used to just really, really love and enjoy writing books. But I think life in itself, I think some of us are given stories. Some of us are given lives that need to be told. So I think that's probably was my initial inspiration, and definitely always knew I'd write a book. I knew I'd write a book my whole life.
Really?
So, yeah, it was actually the first time, Mel, that I knew my purpose. I knew my purpose the first time I sat down and started writing, and I said, this is my purpose, which is nice to finally arrive. I'm 55, and I started writing probably 15 years ago, but to just really find your purpose is, it's like a blooming flower. It really is, and it just keeps on blooming.
Well, I love that, and we're going to talk tonight about your first book and how it came to be. It's My Life of Miracles, and it has just hovers in the top on Amazon in the rankings. It's doing quite well, and we're so thrilled for you. And you chose to publish independently, and take us through that journey. You wrote your book, and how did you get there?
Well, as you know, writing a book is extremely difficult, number one. Anybody who does it, no matter how good or how bad it is, I applaud, because it is definitely a journey, as you know. And so, for me, writing my first book was extremely emotional because it was a personal story. And I felt like I was always walking the line of, is anybody going to believe me? Because my experiences were just almost surreal. So just writing it, and then not only writing the content, but I didn't want to scare anybody with what my experiences were. So I must have rewritten it like 80 times, literally. And so when I thought I finally had my last version done, I had a editor read it, and she called me and she told me she read it 3 times and she loved it, but then she told me she cried. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. I really wanted to, I wanted to move people, but not that much. So then I had, I went back for another year and rewrote it again, until I finally felt like you could read it and sympathize with me, but learn and actually rejoice with me. So that was really important for me to, well, actually also the number one thing that I wanted was for people not to talk about me, but to talk about themselves. And that actually was my goal. And I would say I successfully achieved my goal, because 99% of the time when I talk to somebody, they'll start with something saying, this is my favorite chapter. And then they'll tell me why and how it relates to them. And I like that. And I think that as an author, to be successful, you need to be relatable. You need to be able to pull obviously your audience in. But when you're writing about such things, that was a hard one to do, but it was achieved. So.
Did you set out, did you know, are you a plotter or just a jump in and write? How did you go about, tell us about your process?
With everything in life, I just jump in. I wish I was organized and just was a plotter, but, well, actually, that's not true. I sat down. Well, what I initially did was I sat down and typed into the computer how to write a book. And then I, watched a couple 100 YouTube videos on people who had done it. And like, somebody just asked me this the other day, and I'm sure you get the same question, what is the one thing you could tell me that would help me to write a book? And I just answered this question for someone yesterday. And I said, the number one thing out of all the things that I read was to work it like a job. So to put a schedule together, and actually, don't be late for that schedule, arrive, make up your hours if you can't make it. And I think out of all the time, I think I only missed one time. So I wrote 6 hours a week, 2 hours at a time, three days a week. So, and I wrote at Barnes & Noble. That was the other thing I said, was to try to find a space to write that is, not your house. So
you were in a public spot or in an open spot rather than, you don't need solitude and isolation?
Right. No, I really, I'm good. I just, again, like if I work it like a job, it actually worked. And it actually got me to finish the book, because when I initially started, I couldn't do it. So that's when I started doing a little bit of research, now that I'm going through it in my mind. Yeah. But then it was actually pretty easy. And then also I wrote for 20-minute increments. I'd write for 20 minutes and I'd get up and walk around for 10. And
you are organized.
I am organized. Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking,
plotting out. That's very scheduled. That's solid.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that was, after trying to write and then figuring out that I wasn't able to write unless I figured out how to actually do it. And that was the best, out of everything I listened to, and people, being extremely detailed, which I'm not that girl. That was the best advice. And that's probably the best advice I could give to anybody who wants to write a book. Make sure you work it like a schedule, set your time. And, I'm a mother of 4, so I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? My youngest now is 13, but I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to wait until he goes to bed. He went to bed at 8 o'clock. So after he went to bed, I'd hustle and get my booty over to Barnes & Noble and I'd write.
Well, it's challenging under any circumstances, but with children and schedules and everything else you have to do to kind of not only physically get into the space where you can accomplish the work that you want to at that time, but mentally, I was just having that conversation with someone about during this time, it's really hard to separate out and get that space, have that clearing so that, those creative channels, can flow.
Well, especially right now, I've got hopefully another book coming out in August, but finding that space for me is really, really hard, because everybody's home, and, let's call it ADD. I don't know, but I'm okay with having 800 people that I don't know around me, just not 800 people around me that I do know asking me for anything. So we're coming up with a new schedule, if you will, in the next coming weeks. So I completely transformed my front room into a writing room.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so my schedule is going to be around my son is in college. He's up in his room. My husband has, we've now turned our guest room into an office for him. So I'm going to command the whole downstairs, and I'm literally going to put a flag up that says, we're all on a 2-hour timeout. I got to write. Nobody can talk.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and we've got some sponsors that we want to give our due time to, and we really appreciate everybody listening in. We're going to be right back with our guest, Brittany Turpin. You're listening to the Indie Beacon TV show.
Authors Marketing Guild, a membership-owned company where authors can learn how to better market and sell their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com.
Factor 7, the newest thriller by author J.D. May, will keep you turning the pages with mystery, betrayal, lies, and infidelity. Ripped from the headlines, Factor 7 follows two prominent doctors who uncover a clandestine plot to spread a bioweapon with a 98% mortality rate. Journey with them as they experience a world of murder, power, intrigue, and corruption, where it becomes deadly clear that exposing the truth is just as dangerous as the weapon they seek to expose.
Do you send book sales to a company that takes most of your money? Do you want a bookstore that supports you? Want to earn more money from your book sales? Introducing a bookstore for indie authors and small press only. Earn up to 80% of your book sales and learn how to better market yourself. Join the 150 authors already signed up to earn their fair share at e4r.store.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canyon, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canyon, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on any major podcast system, Amazon TV, and YouTube. Join Mary Ann Fairmouth for today's show.
And we're back. Thanks for joining us this evening on the Indie Beacon Show. I'm here with special guest, award-winning author Brittany Turpin. And we were talking about her writing process, but I want to now get into the book itself, My Life of Miracles. And what you said earlier about the person that you had that read it cried, and you really didn't want to elicit that kind of response. I'm going to tell you, I did. There were some chapters, but I think it came more out of just this raw, authentic emotional response than a negative. I think that you did what you had maybe hopefully set out to accomplish, and that is through telling your story, people are moved by it in all the different chapters. And it's the queen, the dress, the Snow Queen. Yeah. Chapter really moved me for reasons that you're going to have to read the book to see why that is. But it was a beautiful chapter, and there really is something in there that can touch everyone's soul and spirit. And I think now, as we're going through these difficult times, we're looking for those opportunities, and you've done it beautifully. Was it hard for you to write? These are pretty revealing, emotional segments of your life and your upbringing.
So there was let's see, how do I say this? So when I wrote the book, I didn't write it in the right order. My editor was like, you need to put them, in the right order. And I said, I don't want to. I said, I wrote them exactly how I could write them, because some were easier to write than others. And some, would take me literally months, like especially the ones about my mother, take me months to recover from actually writing them, or even to drive home. When I wrote about when I had the visitation, what I believed to be the visitation for my mother, I had to pull over. I just couldn't stop shaking, and didn't realize how still connected, even though it happened to me as a small child, how still connected you are to those feelings and those emotions and those just how raw those memories can be, even though you think you've worked through it. And
absolutely.
And for me, and I mean this to be really what it is that it was literally every story for me, I felt was such a miracle, and so connected with God, and just always coming out on top, always coming out on top. And, being able to be grounded in the idea that I'm never alone, and that no matter what happens, as long as you keep believing for that outcome. And I think that's the difference between myself and even my siblings. They said, why was it so different for you? And I said, because I believed that there was going to be something good on the other side. And I think that's what we miss, actually, even in teaching our children, is, hope and faith. And for even if you want to remove the God out of it, which I don't, but if someone else does, just even having hope and faith to get to the other side of good. And especially, where we're at right now with the pandemic, and just being present, to be happy, to be encouraging to others. And even though they were really hard stories, to understand that even though they were hard, on the other side of it was something really great and beautiful and wonderful. And but just writing them, I kind of still had to go through the emotion of the hard stuff, but in the end crying and going, it was really wonderful. Right. Hopefully that makes sense.
It makes absolute sense. And I think that is so important, and really something that we're doing more so, just humanity now. We're really trying to see that whatever we go through, whatever this is we're going through right now, we will come through it. We have to have, faith in whatever source that brings you that faith, that it's going to get better. And I think, honestly, I read something recently, a quote from a book that it said, our life is the story we tell ourselves.
There you go. And every day.
It's
every
so
day.
Whatever that narrative running through your head from a child, and what you said earlier struck a chord, that you can go through therapy, you can grow up, you think you work through everything. Part of it stays with you, and however that process is, and whatever that looks like, at different phases in your life, changes, but it's still part of you. The threads are woven together, and they make you the beautiful tapestry that you are as a human at your age now. And again, I think that is why these stories resonate so deeply and would evoke such emotion, because they do touch part of you. Obviously, the reader hasn't gone through what you went through, but you can relate to it. And the way that your writing is so relatable and so important.
Thank you.
In this time. I think that we're really lucky that this calling came to you to write this book, and we're really glad that you did. How long did it take you from conception to having, and I have it here, having this
5 years. Yeah, it was like
5 years.
Yeah, it took me 5 years, just again, because I would just start, and once I got the my pattern down, it took me less than a year, but the initial probably 12 chapters, I would just write, and it would just tear me up. So I think that once I realized that what my goal was to find the good in everything that happened, once I realized that, and I literally penciled it out instead of took to my computer, when I started going through my mind of I won the Snow Queen contest. All these really wonderful things. And quite honestly, I wouldn't do anything over again, because I am a champion. And that's really what this is about, is that I became a champion because I was able to rise above all these things that happened, and influence and promote just love and the understanding that forgiveness is just really the most beautiful thing that you could ever experience in your entire life, no matter how bad something is.
Yeah, and I think that jumps from the pages, that's the overarching theme of it to work through things. When you decided to self-publish or to publish independently, did you go through an editor? Well, you spoke about an editor. You had
Right.
an editor. And how about your cover design? Because there's a lot of our viewers, and we're going to talk about that more after the break, that are considering or in the process of writing. So the next steps are ahead of them. And we really want to talk both about that and also, marketing, because that's a whole different ballgame. And I like to joke that writing was the easy part,
It really is. You're 100% right.
And during these times, especially unprecedented in a pandemic and everything shut down, we can't do book signings in quite the same way. So I know everyone is going to be really interested to see how you've done that and how you launched the book and were on a roll and then, effectively shut down because of the pandemic. So what you're doing now, I would really like to talk about. Have you been happy with the process, like from once you wrote to your editor to getting it to a published piece?
Yes, which your first one is very difficult. So take notes, put them in a lockbox so you don't forget where they are. Yes, I mean, you just have to be resilient and just each step. And I thought that once I was done writing the book, and I'm sure you probably experienced this as well, I thought that once I was done writing the book, it was like easy after that. But then, getting the front cover done and then taking time to have, your author picture done. But even mostly the hardest part for me was getting everything lined up so I could actually get everything in the book perfect. And then I hired someone to go in and, put the little decals at the top of the chapters. And I mean, it just was a process. The last probably 8 months, it probably took me to get the font, to just the little things that make, and it really is, as you know, it really is about the details of the book. You want a beautiful book. You want to represent who you are, which was more important for me than a timeline. I wanted to represent, I felt like I had a beautiful life, so I wanted a beautiful book.
Well, and it is all in the details, and those details shine through in your book. And we're going to take a quick break with our sponsors and get back to you and talk about the next process, and especially getting out there and how that's been in a pandemic, because, let's face it, it ain't easy, and
It's not.
So I'm really excited to talk about that. You're listening and watching the Indie Beacon Show. I'm Mel Greenberg. I'm here with special guest Brittany Turpin, and we'll be right back.
Lone Star Festival, where Texas authors, artists, and creatives come together for a Texas-sized event. Join us on May 29, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Seguin Coliseum, Seguin, Texas. Free for everyone. Produced by Texas Authors Institute of History. Sponsored by B4R.store, Authors Marketing Guild, and the City of Seguin. More information at lonestar.bookfestival.network.
To embrace your children's imagination, check out Diane Floyd Bame's books for kids. There's The Moonling Adventures, all about the animals in the Serengeti. And then there's Harry the Camel, learning to love yourself just the way you are. Then The Little Girl in the Moon. There's one about friendship, another one about the big ideas, which is an inspirational story. And then Tour Tycho Town, right there in Tycho Crater on the moon. All of Diane Floyd Bame's books are available at B4R Store.
Join us for the 6th Annual Authors Marketing Event in Granbury, Texas on July 23rd to the 25th, 2021, where authors share ideas and learn from the professionals over a 2-day weekend. Receive your book marketing certification from the only organization in the world that has been doing it for 5 years, Authors Marketing Guild, a membership-based organization that supports authors from around the world. Learn more at ame.authorsmarketingguild.com. Sponsored by indielector.store, a bookstore that pays authors their fair share. Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on any major podcast system, Amazon TV, and YouTube. Join Mary Ann Fairmouth for today's show.
Welcome back. I'm Mel Greenberg. You're watching the Indie Beacon Show, and we're here tonight with Brittany Turpin. We've been talking about all things writing, publishing, independent author life, and it's a crazy one, and we're having a great time with you. And Brittany, we're so grateful that you're here. Thank you. I really, really want to spend this last, bit of time we have together talking about what it's been like for you marketing and getting your message out there and getting your book and book sales and how that's affected you during a global pandemic.
So, because, for me, I think it's easier because my book has a message. I think when your book has a message, as opposed to a nonfiction or a fictional book, I think it's easier just because, my tagline when I was doing book signings, when people would walk by, I'd say, hey, do you know someone? Are you, or do you know someone who is struggling with forgiveness? And people just stop. And, I think I've told you this, I pretty much sell out every single time I have a book signing because everybody has struggling with forgiveness. So for me, it was just a little easier because that is my tagline, and everybody's interested in miracles. So so I don't know if that's really fair because miracles are something everybody's interested in, and forgiveness is something that everybody struggles with. So I think it's easier for me to sell a book than maybe someone else. But I definitely know that people are very interested in meeting an author. Being an author holds a lot of weight, which it takes, it's something you do on purpose. It's not something that you can just, fall into or whatever. There's a lot of time, a lot of effort that happens with that. So,
two things. One, how are you doing like virtual events now? How are you doing your book signings? Because you can't be out in the community.
You know what? I'm actually not. I have 4 kids. 3 of them have something called spontaneous anaphylaxis. So bringing COVID into the house would be really scary. So I am not doing book signings. However, I sat back and thought, okay, so a lot of really great things have happened during, like, even the Depression. I try to go through and say, good things have happened during bad times. So, what can I do? So, like yesterday, I had to meet with someone who had already had COVID. So I didn't need to worry that they had COVID. They'd already tested clear for it. So I knew that they were someone that had connection to a lot of people. So I went and I gave them 3 books, and I said, I'd really like to bless you with a book, and then I'm going to give you a couple books. I said, what I want you to do is, and I said, and you'll know who the person's supposed to be. When someone comes to you that is struggling, I want you to give them my book. And they just looked at me, they said, why would you do that? And I said, because this is just the way it works. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And so, and then a couple of days before that, this lady called me and she wanted to buy 3 books from me. And I got there, and instead of having her buy them from me, I actually gave them to her and said, it's because right now is the time to be enhancing people's lives.
Well, how
right now,
connect with you? Can you give us your social media outlets and how, because our viewers may want to purchase the book, and how
Perfect.
can
they? Yes. Thank you. Amazon.
How we can find the book. Brittany Turpin on Amazon.
Amazon, My Life of Miracles, and it looks like this because someone else came out with a My Life of Miracles, but this is not as pretty as this one. And I'm just teasing.
And social media?
And my social media, again, on Facebook is Brittany Turpin. I have an author page and a private page, but you can contact me either way. You can also get me on Brittany_Turpin on Instagram. And I'm also on Twitter as G2G.
Okay. Brittany, thank you so much for taking your time.
And I am so
talking
blessed
to
for,
everyone.
again, having this interview. Thank you.
We're happy that you could join us. And I think anyone out there going through anything will enjoy this book, especially during these times. It's uplifting and heartwarming, and it's a beautiful read. Thank you, and wish you the best of success. You've been watching the Indie Beacon Show. I'm Mel Greenberg. I will be back. And in the meantime, cheers to the journey. Ciao.
Thank you for watching the Indie Beacon Show, produced by B. Allen Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing Guild, LLC, copyright 2021. Voiceover by Randy James and B. Allen Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of this show, please reach out to us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. If you'd like to be on the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music is Always Rejoice by Rampart of Ukraine.